Yes,
Talk
sir.
about DBU for a second. So it's a lot of chat about certain schools, LSU, Florida, like to throw their name into Ohio State. I'm a steadfast person that believe Florida State is defensive back university as far as just all time. We talk about Mickey Andrews, all the guys he produced, just year after year after year, the defensive backs we put in the league from a college perspective and the NFL perspective. So give me your thoughts on DBU and being a part of that DBU fraternity and where FSU stacks up within the DBU ranks against other colleges.
Uh, it's amazing just to be a part of what Florida State has created, the tradition, the prestige, and just being able to go through that program and add to it means a lot because it's important. Now, for me, and not being biased with my answer to your question, but I'm going to give you my why and why I think when it's all said and done, based on where we see things from years ago to currently, Florida State is definitely in the conversation of being DBU. You know what I mean? Depending on who you're asking, might say one, might say two, might say three. I'll say one. I'll say one, and here's why I think Florida State is one when you talk about DBU. One thing about a university having a dominant hold on a certain position, you have to look at the impactful players. And this is just my definition and what determines if a school is a DBU or a running back U or a wide receiver U. My definition is you have to have had impactful players in that said position that were not just impactful, but also trendsetters, game breakers, household name, legendary figures that will forever be remembered in their position. Then outside of that, you have to have a legacy that just wasn't created in college football, but also continued in the National Football League as well. But then the final thing for me is just about longevity. In everything we do, not just sports, but your normal profession, longevity determines how successful you've been, right? When you've been in a job for 30 plus years, it's safe to say you've been successful because they didn't get rid of you, right? And through that time, you've probably improved in your role, you probably improved in your salary, but longevity is the best way to determine success. Kansas City, the longevity of them winning championships or competing in AFC championship games. Those are things, that's how we view success, right? So when you factor in that when it comes to longevity for DBU, name me another university that was relevant with defensive backs in the 80s, that was relevant with defensive backs in the 90s, that was relevant, has been relevant with defensive backs in the 2000s. Florida State. Because if you want to throw in LSU, LSU wasn't relevant in the 80s. LSU wasn't relevant in the 90s. When it came to DBU, LSU, my cousin Pat Peterson was the one who jump-started that DBU conversation. And Pat P was at LSU, from 2009 to 2011. But if you go back to the early 2000s, name me a prominent defensive back that you were like, oh, we all knew who he was at LSU. If you want to go to Ohio State in the 80s, no. Now in the 90s, they started to make things happen with Sean Springs and guys like that. But when you talk about Florida State being relevant in the DBU conversation in the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s, and currently, we're the only university that can say that. And when you talk about the names, as I mentioned, impactful names. I understand when you talk about Deion Sanders and Florida State, there's a little gray area because of things that are happening. He's coaching at Colorado and stuff like that. But the man was established in Tallahassee. And through those opportunities, he took it and went to a whole nother level to become one of the best to ever do it. And if people want to really talk about Deion Sanders, you can talk about Deion Sanders, but then you cannot not talk about Terrell Buckley, who had 21 interceptions in 3 years at Florida State and only started 2. Because his freshman year, he was in the line. I don't think T-Buck started as a true freshman. But 21 picks in 3 years, what are we doing? And not just his ability to be a turnover machine, but also in the return game. Yeah, they're what are we talking about? Like the Leroy Butlers of the world. I mean, we have names that are not just relevant, that weren't just relevant just in college football, also relevant in pro football. Hall of Famers, by the way. that were considered not just the best in the position in college football, but also in the NFL. So when you factor in that class, and then you talk about guys like Samari Rolle. Samari Rolle, I think, is one of the more underrated corners that come from Florida State. Samari Rolle was a straight goon, and the longevity that he displayed in NFL showcased that as well. Clifton Abraham. What about Tay Cody? I don't know if there's another better tackling corner than Tay Cody to come from Florida State. And I consider myself to be a real good tackler, but Tay Cody will saw that bottom leg off and make sure he get you down. And then, of course, you know, some of the new era parents, you know, the Jalen Ramseys of the world. I mean, Ronald Darby, who's still playing in the National Football League.
Still playing with the Ravens, man.
Like what we talk about, Asante Samuel Jr., like Derwin James, like Xavier Rhodes, like Greg Reed, who didn't have the pro career that we felt like he should have had, but in Florida State, in college football, come on, man. What we talking about? Jalen Ramsey, like, come on. LaMarcus Joyner. Name me another guy who played with more effort.
No, you can't.
And he went on to have an outstanding professional career as well. So what we're talking about, and that's my definition. Y'all hit us up in the comment section. That's how I look at when you talk about, is this school DBU? Is this school wide receiver? Impactful players that were trendsetters. Longevity. And then also, too, not just dominated in college football, but taking your talents to the National Football League where people all know your name.
Right. Facts. It don't get no clearer than that, man. That's the answer right there. Before we get out of here, we do have a new subscription tier. So again, make sure you guys subscribe. Well, not necessarily subscribe. Join our subscription and be a part of our team. We have the big dogs and we have the Chiefs. Big dogs at $4.99 and the Chiefs portion at $9.99. Excuse me. With the big dog portion, all of these videos right here, you get early, first release. So again, it's a process we go to in regards to recording these videos and getting them out early. We record these videos. Sometimes we can sit on these videos a week, 2 weeks at a time. But again, if you subscribe at the big dog level, as soon as we record and publish to YouTube, you guys get that video at the instance way before the general public gets it. And also any type of comments you guys have, you don't have to have any super chat or anything like that to have it highlighted. It'll get answered right away. And if you're part of the Chief membership, you get everything that's included with the big dog portion, but you also get one free ticket to any tailgate that we throw of your liking. So again, whether it's the Florida tailgate, Miami, Clemson, whatever it may be for that season, you guys get to pick which tailgate you want to go to, and I will make sure you guys come to that tailgate for free, and also get a discounted price on all the other tailgates for the season. So again, make sure you guys subscribe and join that membership. We have the big dog status and we have the Chief status. Go Noles.